Guys, it's official. The Motomillion R1M is sold. And now it's the time that I could tell you guys the story of the Motomillion R1M. What's up guys, Manny from Motomillion. In this video today, I'm going to talk about the Motomillion R1M, and I want to tell you guys the R1M story. I want to go back and tell you guys where my love and passion for the Yamaha R1 started from. And when I say go back, it goes way back, guys. I think I'm getting quite old, so when I talk about back in the day, it seems like it's further back than I really imagined that it was. Probably what really got me into the R1 was Yamaha when they introduced the crossplane engines in 2009 into the R1s, and into the R1s that was publicly available, obviously, because back in the day, the crossplane engines were used by Yamaha in their M1s, which was their MotoGP bikes. And in 2009, they introduced this technology to being a crossplane crankshaft into the R1s. And it gave Yamaha R1s that distinct crossplane engine sound that we come accustomed to today. When we talk about the R1s and the R1Ms, I think the first thing that pops into my mind is that crossplane engine and how beautiful it sounds and how distinct it sounds from everything else that's out there. And I think that was what really planted the seeds into me of being a huge Yamaha R1 fan and being someone who really wanted to own one. And also, let's not forget, Yamaha was hugely successful with Valentino Rossi.
Down the straight, Rossi's right in behind Lorenzo. Here comes Valentino Rossi, 3 laps to go. Is that what we said?
In MotoGP, which I guess that technology derived from, but also being not just an R1 fan, I was a big Yamaha fan, which was influenced by Valentino Rossi, who had watched, starting from his junior days in 125cc, just dominate this sport and completely reshape this sport of MotoGP. And I think back in the day, most of us riders used to watch MotoGP. For people who grew up in that era, some of these victories and some of these riders had a big influence on what we liked and what we didn't like. And I think that was the heyday of Yamahas, where they used to dominate the sport. They had the most popular guy in motorsport riding for them, and it was amazing. And it's still, I think today, when we think of the Yamaha products, it really makes me think of those days. So now when we take it to the modern era, Yamaha introduced in 2015 the new R1 and the R1M, which was a huge radical change, both for Yamahas, but also in the world of sport bikes and super bikes. It was the most radical bike that was out there in terms of looks, in terms of technology that there was out there, in terms of what they offered. And the looks, it was the shark look with the 2 headlights in the front. It was something that we weren't used to. And also, let's not forget, Yamaha was one of the first that I could remember to have a road bike that was accessible by the masses that had carbon fiber on it. So instantly, being a Yamaha fan, a new R1 comes out, a new product line comes out as the R1M, I was hooked. And I knew that I really wanted an R1M and R1 one day, and I would like to personalize it because, let's face it, we also want to give our personal touch to our experiences in the past and our current experiences to personalize these machines, because when we ride these things, you know, we get away from our daily lives and we want to make sure that we have an experience with them. And the bike as a total whole ends up being an experience for us riders. Fast forward to 2020, we got the chance to purchase an R1M for Motomillion to use as one of our bikes over here, as one of the Motomillion bikes, to really put our personal touch on it. And unfortunately, that bike wasn't finished because we had a base product out there, and one of our very good clients, he was a little skeptical about the Yamaha R1 platform. And this gentleman has a vast experience with motorcycles, and me being a big fan of Yamahas, and I'm no fanboy of one brand. I really enjoy all different levels of bikes, but the Yamaha, I think it stands out there with all the distinct characteristics that it had. I kind of pushed this client to be like, hey, give this bike a try. You know, have it for a few days and ride it and see what it is about, because I really wanted to get his take, because it's either I was crazy of being so passionate about the R1 and the R1Ms, Or, you know, I think someone who has this kind of experience with motorcycles, with motorsports, I think it was a validation for me that if he likes the bike, I think I'm onto something and I'm not crazy. I was trying to convince myself. So he takes the bike, he rides it for a few days, and I get a text message from him saying he likes it and he wants it. And that bike in that form was purchased by this gentleman, and we had intentions on furthering the build because it wasn't the finished product of what we wanted to call the Motomillion R1M. And unfortunately, during this transition of him enjoying the bike as it is and us talking with future plans on what we're going to do to the bike got stolen, and that's where it ended for that. And we'll come forward to the biggest moments of our lives, I think, was COVID, and we were trying to look and see what we're doing, and as Motomillion, as a company, we were growing, and we really wanted to tinker with some of the stuff that was out there. Again, the biggest thing in my mind was, let's do another R1M. We never got to finish that one. Even though we had a lot of other builds happening, I knew in the back of my mind that we really have to do an R1 or an R1M because it's something that I really, really enjoy and I really like. And during this time, we got to start talking with Yamaha, and luckily we have contacts with Yamaha Motor USA and their marketing department. So let me make this clear, guys. I've said this before. When I speak about manufacturers in terms of the motorcycle manufacturers and product manufacturers, they never have any decision making on our end for what we say about them or our thoughts about a bike or our builds. And what they do is they kind of help us in a way that they make stuff available for us in terms of if something's not available, maybe we'll get a chance of getting it first, or they make it available for us. Or in terms of product manufacturers, you know, maybe they'll give us something first. Again, nothing is free. We never get stuff given to us for free because, again, that's a slippery slope, because giving something for free might kind of change our thoughts or why we use it on a motorcycle, which is never the case. But sometimes we've gotten lucky enough that they'll actually produce what's in our mind and the ideas so that it becomes a reality that we use on these builds. So that disclaimer aside, we start talking with Yamaha Motor USA and their marketing department, and we told them that we really would like to get our hands on an R1M, and it was during COVID times that these things weren't available, and they're very positive and receptive for it. And as you guys know, these motorcycles are made in Japan, and Japan was one of the most restrictive countries in terms of COVID times, so there was nothing coming out of Japan in terms of motorcycles or any products being produced because I think they were on some strict lockdowns. It was a very long wait, and we had to be patient about it. I think they first told us that we were going to have the bike in April of 22. It didn't happen. It got pushed to July. And when I finally got that call from Yamaha Motor USA, I think it was August or September, that they said, hey Manny, your R1 is coming. And also what they said was, which was very cool to me, that we're going to send this bike in a crate to your house. You're going to take delivery at your house and you can uncrate it and you could experience this. I think that was a very joyful moment for me, just because that they made that available for me to be able to uncrate my bike. And as you guys know, I like to work on our stuff. I want to do all the work as much as possible. And these are some very serious and respectable toys that we get to play with that I have to sometimes pinch myself to say, is this reality? Because this is really cool. So Yamaha sends us the motorcycle. You guys didn't get to see this. There's a lot of behind the scenes that you guys don't see. Unfortunately, it came damaged on the crate. They had put a forklift through the crate. Yes, people do this kind of stuff. That it damaged some of the carbon fiber on the bike. Yamaha said, hey, we could get you another bike out, or we could get you the replacement. But I think the last final decision was, it was so hard to even get the parts at the time that they're like, we'll just send you this new bike. They'll pick up the old one away from us. And they sent us the Motomillion R1M, or what was supposed to, or what was going to become the Motomillion R1M. We got the bike, we unboxed it, we showed it to you guys. It was, I still clearly remember that day. I remember it was a nice sunny day that we received this bike. We had the whole Motomillion crew. We even have a picture of all the guys at Motomillion. We took a picture with the crate because for me, it was really cool. It was the first time that I received a motorcycle in its crate, and we got to unbox it, we got to prep it. And during this process, I had time to start thinking of what are we going to do with this R1M. I knew that we were going to get a bike from Yamaha, but I just didn't know when it was happening, especially since delay after delay started happening. It gave us a lot of time to think about it. It was a lot of highs and lows, you know, because we waited till April, it didn't come. We waited till June, it didn't come. And I totally understand the circumstances that was happening, so that we couldn't blame anybody, but we had to play that patient game. It gave me a lot of time to think about what do we do with this R1M? What should the final product look like? I think about it day and night. I'm so passionate about it. I do these things as, these are not my bikes, but I build them up, or I try to plan them out as, what would I do if it was my bike? What would I do if I could build the R1M that is for Manny from Motomillion, if it was his bike? During all of this process, that the bike is coming, and when it's coming, we got to get the contact at Akrapovic. And I think that was the first breakthrough with this project. And I wanted to make it very special, you know? It's I'm not the one to get hung up on the firsts, like I want to be the first to do this, or I want to make it so different. But we don't want to go down a rabbit hole of saying, let's do something that's so radical and different, because then you go down a rabbit hole of, you kind of lose that personality that you want to give to the bike. It doesn't matter to be the first or to be different. I want it to be, what is something that I'm really going to enjoy? What is my mentality, or what is my current situation right now that I like something or I don't like something? And we got to talk with Akrapovic. Yamaha is synonymous with motorsports, and throughout this whole history of me starting to like Yamaha, as motorsports was a big factor, be it MotoGP, and nowadays they're kind of fading away on MotoGP field because Ducati is so dominant. But in World Superbike, they were still dominant around the time that we received this bike. Now, yes, Ducati is very dominant, but Yamaha is up there with them still in World Superbike. And I thought, hey, what if we could get our hands on a World Superbike exhaust? And we just started talking, and trust me guys, I don't sugarcoat things to make it more special than it is, because I don't think I have to, because as I said, I build these things to cater my taste and not to do something so that we have a wow factor for clickbait or for some of you guys that are watching these videos. And we just started in discussions on seeing if we could get our hands on one of these exhaust systems. And it is quite hard, especially, you know, at our level. We are just a parts retailer, and we're no big time race team or any major. You have to be a race team basically to be able to get your hands on some of these parts, because let's not forget, there's a lot of proprietary information that goes along with getting your hands on some exhaust system that they're using in racing, because they're very secretive about these exhaust systems, because some of them have some technology that they don't want to show other manufacturers. And it's very hard to get your hands on some stuff that is very unique, let's say. And we started talking with Akrapovic, and we were trying to figure out, can we put a Superbike exhaust on it? And it started the discussion like that, and does it fit? So the World Superbike, the Superbike race bike, so World Superbike WSBK has different series and different classifications that are in there. So we were trying to get our hands on a World Superbike exhaust, and when we started talking with them, we figured out that on a road bike, the changes are so vast that it might take away from what we want as the final product, because we have to change the radiator, we have to change the oil pan, and we have to change the swing arm to be able to run this thing on a road going R1M. And this kind of took away from what I wanted to achieve in the end. Because when we build these bikes, especially when I build them, I want to make sure that it's a bike that I could go out and experience without any downfalls. They are road bikes after all. I'm sure if it was a full-on track bike that we're building, hey, let's just do a complete super bike, right? Because how cool is that? We could build a complete super bike out of one of these machines, and it's a track bike. That's the top of the level that we could do with these things, and that's it. But when you're talking about road bike, it is very different. You want to make sure that a road bike stays a road bike. It's legal in terms of the use that you're going to do, but also let's not forget the enjoyment of it. Most of us who are able to afford these bikes don't have a lot of time left over, be it family, work, whatever it is, that when we ride these things, it's out of pure enjoyment. And you don't want to take away anything from this time frame that you get to ride these things, that something's going to go wrong or something's not going to be right. And so the Superbike exhaust was out of the question, because I think changing the radiators and the oil cooler and also changing the swing arm is going to take away from that road bike experience quite a bit. And also it's not going to be, if we build these bikes, I want to make sure someone who is able to purchase this bike from the dealership should be able to do it themselves without going through, number one, the trouble of expertise of getting it done by somebody else. But also, I think there is, in my mind, I have some sort of a price cap that, is this worth it? You know, is a $10,000 swing arm worth it? I'm sure it'll be cool to say, hey, we got a World Superbike Suitor swing arm on this bike. But at the end, I think, you know, it's we don't do these things as to brag about what we've done to the bike. That being said, I think a happy medium was set, and we got our hands on the super stock exhaust, which meant that we could use the stock radiators and the swing arm that didn't have to be changed. And again, from what we learned from Akrapovic, this was so different from the Evolution line that's available to the general public, that to me it had that novelty that, hey, this is cool, we're able to run this, we don't have to make major changes to the bike, and it fit the bill. And by the time that the bike was coming to us and we figured this out, now my mind starts racing, right? Okay, so we got the exhaust on. It's the first piece that we knew that's going to go on this bike. And the next was, what are we really going to be doing with this bike? What do I want from this bike to be? And the next thing was, I think the biggest decision was the paint scheme. As you guys saw with our V4X project, we could do a very exquisite paint scheme that is still very on brand or on product, because we did the V4X. When you looked at that bike, it was still a Ducati. It was still something that a Panigale V4 could have, but it was so out there that it was, I think, it was a really unique piece. I think it ended up being a work of art, if I may say that to you guys. So since we have the capability of doing this paint scheme thing on the bike, we start sketching stuff, I start photoshopping stuff to see what we could do. But at the end, I made the decision of saying, if we're building an R1M, I want to build the ultimate R1M, because if you guys saw, tandemly when we had the R1M delivered to us, we also had a client project of the 50th anniversary. I think with that, we really took the paint scheme thing on and kept that 50th anniversary. But with the R1M that we have, I really wanted to keep the R1M DNA. I didn't want to go crazy, because I just thought, what would be the ultimate R1M that we could build? Because the R1M has such a great character, right? Because from factory, it comes with so much carbon fiber, and it has the distinct R1M colors that are on it. You can't, like when you see an R1M out there, you can't mistake it for an R1 or anything else that's out there. And that's where it started clicking in. I said, okay, we're putting on the paint scheme aside, we're going to make this the ultimate R1M. And it having so much carbon fiber, and Full 6 at the time just starting to release all the new bodywork carbon fiber pieces that fits the street bodywork, I knew that we're going to take all the plastic parts out. We're going to completely dress up this bike with carbon fiber, because, you know, don't forget, when Yamaha builds these products, they have to adhere to some standards, and it has to be a worldwide product. It has to suit, totally different markets in terms of price point, in terms of legality, that I think sometimes they have to dial things down a little bit. But I think if Yamaha had the ability to do so, they would have completely made this thing carbon fiber. So that's when Full 6 kind of came in, and they were starting to produce all these parts, and I was so happy because we were able to change every single plastic piece that's on this bike to carbon fiber. And I was so happy, and I was like, let's do this. So it's going to become a total carbon fiber bodywork bike, but it's still going to be all street bodywork. And some of the stuff that's plastic on the bike that has the R1M signature blue pieces, we're either going to paint it or we're going to order the graphics kits from Yamaha to keep it on there. And that was the bodywork. And I think the next step was some of the stuff that was a downfall in terms of, I guess let's call it a budget thing that Yamaha couldn't do on the bike in terms of the brakes. The brakes were a little bit, let's say, not a letdown, but a notch down from what's available from the other super bikes out there. And that's when we obviously decided that we're going to go on full on with the Brembo braking package. But also, let's not forget the distinct R1M thing is the blue wheels. And at the time, you guys saw that on our previous R1M build, we had used the Marchesini wheels that were blue anodized. And again, it had that novelty factor of not being something that is widely available. And again, that kind of makes something special, right? Because you're not going to see it so often. Even if you're browsing on Instagram, everything's on the internet now, but you're not going to see another one of these wheels. And at that time, we had used it previously on our R1M, but all of a sudden, Aussie Racing sends out this email saying that they have these special edition matte blue wheels. Oh my God, these things look so cool. And when I saw them in person, I knew that this is going to go on this Motomillion R1M that we're building. When we picked the wheels, we knew that this is going to be inherently R1M. And if you took a look at the bike, and you can't mistake this thing for anything else that's out there. I think in total, that was the philosophy behind the bike. And even some of the stuff that, if you look back for my passion for motorsports and MotoGP, all those button pods that we put on these bikes that we change, those all derive from MotoGP. When I was a kid watching MotoGP, the first thing that pops on the handlebars were all those button pods that were out there, and now they were available. I even knew that we were going to use these things on the bike. And in terms of the 2020 and the newer R1Ms, they had a completely new throttle setup that was out there, meant that we have to make sure that somewhat out there manufactures the throttle housing that encapsulates all of those buttons that are on there to work for the street bike. And luckily WRS produced this part, and I knew that was going to go on this Yamaha R1M that we're building. And in total, that was the philosophy behind the build. I think if you guys want to see it in detail, there's a lot of cool pieces that are on there. You guys can go and watch our walk around video. So the philosophy of the build aside, I want to take this chance to talk to you guys about the challenges of building such a product, because when you guys are watching this YouTube series, you guys just see us picking parts and putting them on. But there's a lot more stuff that goes behind the scenes. Just like, for example, when we're talking to Akrapovic about this exhaust system that comes on the super bikes, don't forget, they have different electronics, or if they're even using the race ECU, it's something that's a factory supported piece that's out there. So when Akrapovic says, hey, they don't run O2 sensors, you gotta see, because on a road bike, how do you get rid of the O2 sensors, right? Because you can't run the race ECU since it doesn't have turn signal functionality, the headlights, but we're building a road bike. And this is when Brand Tuning came in and they helped us with finishing out and figuring out how to have the tune on this bike on the stock ECU while it doesn't have any O2 sensors, to make sure that this bike will run on a 100-degree day, on a 60-degree day, has no hiccups. And they stepped up big time, because with all the supporting mods, this bike put out some great power figures out there. And when I say great power figures, the jump from the stock figure to the end product was tremendous for us, and we were extremely happy with it. And another thing was, when we pick and choose these parts, I want to take things up to a new level, right? So the R1, when you think of the R1 nowadays, one thing that I think that as a con with the bike is the display. Yes, it has a nice digital display, but compared to some of the new offerings out there, I wanted to upgrade the display that's on the bike. So we're talking with this Italian manufacturer for having a new display on the bike. We received a new display. We started sending wiring harnesses back and forward to make sure everything is working. Because again, don't forget, I talked about the experience of these bikes, right? You want to make sure everything is working, and everything is working as it would from the factory. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. We spent a lot of time and effort in trying to make this work. And also, it's also the finances, right? We're sending things back and forth, overnighting it from Italy. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. And that was, I think, one of the other challenges that we faced that I really wanted on this bike, but ultimately it didn't work out. I think it was, I don't know, it was 99% functional, but that 1% meant a lot for me. And that's when I decided that we're not going to be using this piece. And fortunately, with this bike, there weren't many more challenges. I think the other challenge was just to think about what do we really do with this bike? How do we take this build on? And it took the shape that and form that it took right now. And trust me, when I look at this bike right now, and if you guys see on the videos when I rev the bike or when I'm doing the walk around, I have a smile on my face. You know, I don't think it's a poker face that I put on for the camera, but these things really make me happy because in the end, it's something that I conceptually thought in my mind, and now it's physically there. And seeing the end product, it gives me such a satisfaction that, you know, it's a toy. It's a toy that, imagine if you were a kid and they tell you could design your Matchbox car, or you could design your own toy and you receive it and you see it, how happy you'd be. It's the same kind of a feeling that I get when I see these build bikes that we do. Also, what else makes me happy is seeing other people who enjoy seeing such a product that's out there, and they give such positive reactions to seeing these bikes, and they acknowledge that the work and effort that we put into these things is a universal thing that is out there with us riders and also us fans of certain bikes that are out there that we enjoy. And seeing the happiness and the joy that these things bring, that there's other people out there that enjoy these things so much as well as I do. Because I put this term out there a couple times already about the Motomillion Signature Series. We'll have a whole video going over the Signature Series, but I'll touch base on it a little bit over here and spill some of the beans. Motomillion Signature Series is going to be the Signature Series bikes that we build as part of our YouTube program that we have, that we build these bikes and show it to you guys. They're going to be available to purchase for you viewers who are out there, because we've gotten a lot of inquiries about you guys wanting some of these bikes or wanting to see if we would build one for you. So at this point, we're going to offer the bikes that we're building on YouTube. If they're not the bikes that are already been commissioned by some of our clients, it's going to be available for you guys to purchase. And this brings it on to Nick, who is the lucky new owner who's going to take possession of the Motomillion R1M. And I'm really happy. I don't want to give too much personal information out there because I respect the privacy of our clients, but I could tell you this, Nick is just as passionate about sport bikes as I am. And also it goes back further to the beginning of this whole story that Nick is a huge Valentino Rossi fan. And I think he really likes the R1 and the R1M platform just because of this whole story of, you know, the cross-plane bikes and they're coming from MotoGP, and Valentino Rossi being such a big name that was out there for some of us older guys that grew up with that name, and him being so synonymous with the R1 and the R1M that's out there right now. And I'm sure that Nick is going to take very good care of this bike, and overall he's going to really enjoy this bike because he's been a client for quite a few years now. I've had some interactions with him. He's built some really cool bikes for himself, and now he's going to be able to take on the Motomillion R1M and continue on this story with his personal experiences going to get to enjoy. And Nick, if you're watching, thumbs up to you. I think you're going to have a great time with this bike. Guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And this is a totally new format of videos that we're doing for you. And if you like this format, please let us know in the comments below. That way, we'll be able to set some time apart to bring this kind of content for you guys. And also, don't forget, guys, you guys can tell us what the next Motomillion bike should be, because with the R1M series being concluded, we're going to have to pick another bike that's out there. And I already have some thoughts, but let's see what you guys think. And as I always say, until next time, guys, have a great one.